Welcome to the AA Sports Podcast, minor league feel with major league discussion. Here are your hosts, Alan and Alan.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 23 of the AA Sports Podcast. We are your hosts, Alan and Alan.
What is going on, everyone?
So what you been up to, man?
Sweating.
Yes, if you guys don't know, it is hot in the garage. It's got to be, I think today it was about 92, but it's muggy and the heat retained.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. Like, was it last week when it dropped down? Like, this is not June weather. Like, this year is especially very weird.
Yes, it is.
So, first thing first, we have finally some good news to kind of talk about. But first, we're going to talk about is MLB's documentary that came out on Sunday on Father's Day, Ken Griffey Jr.
Yep.
And I think they kind of planned it, especially because the first part talked about when he played with his dad, which was great, but it was a very good documentary. Like, especially us growing up in the 90s, like, this was the guy we idolized, the swing.
Yeah, best swing I've ever seen, and as a lefty, I mean, there's no swing better than Griffey's. Yeah, absolutely not.
It comes from, baseball players' styles and grace. Everyone grew up, especially the players nowadays, watching this guy, and
yeah, man, the kid had the backwards hat. He had, had the best swing you could ever see. Big smile. Love the game.
Definitely. So, the 90-minute film starts as early as, his dad playing for the Reds when they won the world champions. But then he started becoming better and better. And high school, the next scouts started coming. And then towards the end of the season, they said there wasn't many scouts because they knew he wouldn't go past third pick. And
why scout him when you know he's a beast?
Like, okay, we don't have a chance. And if anyone's seen this guy, because he's a five-tool player, and God was he one. So, just talks about how Seattle got lucky with the first pick. They took him, and they were talking about 4 to 5 years, we'll see him in Major League. Well, of course, he tore up minor league in 2 years, and then they invited him to spring training just to see how he did, and almost hit 400 at spring training. So they're like, we have to start him.
Yeah, you had to, especially since his dad was on the squad already of that team, right?
No, he was still not there. His second year is later in the year they traded for his dad.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a crazy cool story, especially when they hit back-to-back jacks.
Yeah, they first talk about how they got singles and the part where this is a funny story. I love when you get these little stories. This is what missing with last week we talked about the documentary with the Long Gone Summer. Yeah, was his they asked his dad you don't want to talk about that. He's like, you don't want to tell me how I grounded him. So there was a fly ball. They told him they played outfield together. He's like, look, I got 3 feet of area and the rest is yours. Well, he clearly called it. Junior came over and snagged the ball from him, and he got scared, didn't know where the ball was, and walked on the field and was like, give me your keys, you're grounded.
That's funny.
So then, of course, the memorable, they're the first ever, then the back-to-back home runs, and it was great. And then it says, LeBron James was one of the people that talked about it, and it was exciting because, he's the first baseball player to have a signature shoe. He had the Griffies. Everyone had them. But LeBron James said it makes the game of baseball cool. So LeBron, he said, being a high school phenomenal, drafted first overall in his sports, perhaps the signature moment, Griffey came in 95 in the American Division Series against the Yankees. And another thing, what came from that was that whole series talk about is his hatred for the Yankees.
Okay.
And it came back to actually something that's kind of nowadays is racism.
Yeah.
So when he was, I think it was because Dad played towards the end of his career, so I'm pretty sure Junior was a senior in high school around then. Because I think he said it was 85, 86. But they're like, oh, Steinberg don't want no one in the dugout. And his dad's like, he's my son. He's like, yeah, Steinberg wants no one. He's like, oh, okay. And he told Junior before you go to the clubhouse, he's like, just go look at third base. And it was other white players' son playing ground balls in third base.
That's crazy.
So they had a little clip bit in there. They had signing autographs at Yankee Stadium. Come on, come to the Yankees. No. He's like, if they're the last team to offer me a contract, I'd rather retire.
Wow. So yeah, definitely some hatred towards the Yankees, and I get it, man. That's pretty bad.
And then it goes in he's the one that wanted the trade with the Reds because he wanted to be home. He was, his kids start going to school. He's like, I want to be around them. That's something that he didn't have with his dad. Towards part of the year, he wanted to be closer to home, so that's where the trade happened. And unfortunately, his style of play in Seattle, the run and gun, lay it all out, probably finally caught up to him and the Reds with, of course, the injuries.
Yep.
But the good thing, it came around where he re-signed with the Mariners his last season, and kind of he's like happy. And then overall, you can't complain about the guy. 13 All-Stars, 10 Gold Gloves. What was it? 630 home runs.
Exactly.
Who knows what could have been? Because
Yep.
I was telling you, I couldn't believe, I totally forgot the strike season. He had 40 home runs going into the strike, and it was August.
Yeah.
He could have been the first one to break Babe Ruth's record. I mean, not Mantle's record, but we never know. Not Mantle, but Roger Maris.
Right.
But, the biggest thing at the very end, what they talked about during the Hall of Fame, because they showed some of his speech and stuff, how he got emotional, but a lot of people were like, who were the three people that didn't vote for him during the Hall of Fame? Remember, he fought three votes shy to being the first unanimous player.
Yeah.
And we're like, who was the three? And then they're like, most likely it was probably Yankees.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, they're so salty.
And then he said at the very end, he said a quote, he said, I didn't do it because of the money. I didn't do it for the fame. I did it because I love baseball.
And you can tell. I mean, when you see Griffey on the field, I mean, he's all out, fast as lightning, can hit the ball a mile.
Yeah,
He loved the game.
He pretty much saved baseball after the strike. His swag, people more, brought it. So I think that's why some people look to Trout nowadays. Like, this is your job now. And Trout is not like Griffey as in the light, I would say.
Yeah. He's humble, I believe.
Like, yeah, he'd be the guy that you want your daughter to marry, definitely. But he's not that outspoken, the guy like Trevor Bauer is definitely outspoken. But Trout is Trout. He's he does have that role model, but Griffey was something special.
Well, when you say outspoken and a great ball player, what would you think about Bryce Harper? He's outspoken. He's out there.
Right there with you.
The kids like his way.
Yeah. And that's what the whole thing with Let the Kids Play a couple years ago. I love when Griffey walked into that commercial, let the kids play. It was perfect because that's what baseball needs nowadays. And then it's sad that not more of it's being shown because, we talked about before with social media and whatnot with baseball, but definitely something that it can be improved, and Griffey definitely set the bar very high.
Okay. All right. You got anything else to touch on that? Or
not really. It was a very great documentary. MLB don't have it really. If you got to watch, if you haven't watched it, Sling. If you have Sling app, that's how I watched it.
All right. Well, yeah. If you haven't checked it out, check out Junior. Alan says it's a pretty good documentary. I haven't got a chance to watch it. It just came out this week. But moving on. So it seems like the Mets still have buyers interested. What do we got on that?
So more and more it's coming out like we said last week with A-Rod finding people. So first thing first, David and Simon Rubin, whose worth is about $14 billion, are apparently exploring the idea of buying the Mets.
Okay.
Most recently because of the surrounding area of Citi Field can be definitely some retail shops and stuff would happen because it's a very rundown area. It's Queens.
So do you think that they're going to develop it?
That's what I think they're looking into, where they can buy the team and then develop around the stadium.
Interesting.
That's where they're interested because recently they have moved into New York a couple months ago. So they're looking at possibility of getting into real estate in the New York area, and this is possibly something they're looking into now.
Okay.
So they've got multiple different investments. They started in real estate. They have tech companies over in the UK. They reportedly tried to purchase. They have purchased a retail condo near Rockefeller Center. So they're expanding their enterprise in New York, and the bid for Mets seem to align right now for them. And they've also been interested in purchasing a stake in the English Premier Club League.
Okay.
So
they're busy.
Yeah, they have $14 billion worth. They're looking like, okay, we have some money. Let's get into this.
All right. Well,
and it might fall in their hands.
Are they sports people?
Not yet. They're interested, I think.
Okay.
So, but then the next is A-Rod again. He's finding more people. So first thing first is Vitamin Water's co-founder Mike Rapole is joining A-Rod and J-Lo's group.
Vitamin Water, doesn't David Wright have some?
He did
ownership in that.
But when Coke bought it, he got a big check.
Okay.
But yeah, so apparently his net worth is just over $1 billion. So there's another billionaire getting involved.
Okay.
In 2011, he apparently was interested in buying the Mets when the team was not far from bankruptcy. Was told at the time of the post. He was waiting for Mets' financial woes to become public before moving to the lowball offer. But then that's when the Mets got the loan to kind of help right the ship. So he was ready to buy him then. So now it's like, maybe there's something I can get back into. But then there's an anonymous source that someone else is joining because of Repo, and that is Barstool Reports Dave Portnoy. And not long after that, Portnoy tweeted this yesterday. An anonymous source has asked me if I'd like to be involved to an anonymous professional sports team if they anonymously buy the franchise. I wouldn't have to relocate, need to consider, tweeted Portnoy, who lives in New York City with their headquarters now located.
That would be crazy.
Right?
Wow.
You just made the deal. You got $400 million in the bank. Like, you can put some to help stake. Like, Barstool as a Mets
Wow,
owner.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, A-Rod's slowly grabbing some team together.
Okay, A-Rod. I'm
Of course, Steve is still out there, but
right.
A-Rod is getting some players involved.
Well, he probably saw what Jeter did and is like, look, I can do this too.
Yeah, and especially being in New York, it's big mecca. You can finally, so it's going to be interesting.
It'd definitely be interesting, especially if A-Rod and his group gets the team, because then you don't have one sole owner. You have a bunch of guys who have to make the decision.
Then who's going to be the president? Most likely it could be A-Rod like Jeter is.
Right.
I'm assuming so.
Okay. Well, I'd be interested.
Oh, definitely. Next thing, speaking of Bryce Harper and his wife announced yesterday that they are expecting their second kid.
Another little girl.
And this time it is a girl.
Yes.
So, Crew Harper is their son, was born in August. So now, it's been quite 2 years for Harper. He signed the 13-year, $330 million deal, having a son, and now having a daughter expecting.
Yeah, setting down roots. Definitely looks like they're going to be staying in Philly for a while, so they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. So congratulations to him. So next,
next it looks like we talked about how baseball's coming back possibly. Well, it is now, I'm assuming. And the one thing that was concerning us last week was the issue where people were testing positive for coronavirus at the facilities.
Yeah. So apparently through this week, this is why I guess talks intensified, is reported that 40 players and staff have tested positive this week for coronavirus. And that's why the shutdown of the spring training facilities to get a deep cleaning. And this is one of the thoughts that a lot of players have thought about coming back. Like, what about if I get it or we get it? Like, what's going to happen?
Right. And I know it's a concern for some people. And even in other sports, the NBA is coming back, and some players are opting not to come back and play because of the situation. So I feel like in this situation with the MLB, there are going to be some players who aren't going to come back because of this.
Yeah, there's a real possibility. And the biggest thing is the Toronto Blue Jays. Their spring training facility, if they do not be allowed to go to the spring training facility, they go home. Well, the borders are not open yet, so they cannot go to Toronto to their home to train. So most likely some people are like, what they're going to do, and most likely AAA facility in Buffalo, that's probably the strong possibility to happen there. So and I think they're supposed to open up, I think if I remember correctly, I'm reading up on the Canada border as of right now. I think it's July 21st. So if the season is supposed to start in July, it should be open by the time for baseball to start.
Yeah, I think the date they were throwing around was like end of July, like the 29th or something around
something
there.
like 24th, I think I remember.
Okay, and then they're going to go back to report to spring training on the 1st, I think.
That's their plan. We'll talk about that here in a quick second. So next thing is that the players voted no Tuesday for the recent deal that MLB and the owners suggested. It was still a 60-game prorated salary. Salaries would not be guaranteed in the event of games were not played. The playoff pool for players would have been $25 million minimum. If fewer than 50 games were played, playoffs would not have been expanded the following season in 2021. And DH would not have been applied to 2021 season. And there would be no salary relief with the respected to the $170 million and the owners advance the players in early April. The players had requested that some of this transform from an advance to early salaries to a one-time payment. So that was the deal. They shot it down 33-5.
Yeah, yep. Well, nobody wants to show their hand because, like you said, they're going into negotiations next year, and I don't know why they couldn't come together on this one. I mean, we were arguing over about 10 games. You and I thought that the expanded playoffs and the DH for this year was a pretty cool thing, and some other things they were talking about doing.
And like it coming to find out that part of the deal was they're going to be wearing microphones for certain games to be
which would be
mic'd up.
cool. That would be cool.
That'd been great because you want to get the younger fans involved. Like it is very apparent that most baseball fans are older fans, so that would have definitely raised the bar a lot during games. But
right, so the MLBPA voted this down, but there is good news. Baseball is back. So with that being said, I agree. We had an opportunity for them to come together to an agreement where we could see a universal DH this season, expanded playoffs with a short season, which makes sense to me. We could have had microphones during games. There was a lot of advantages to the agreements that were on the table at the time. But now I feel like as fans, we're not getting the whole thing. We're missing out now because of this, because of them voting it down.
Yeah, because ultimately it was a 60-game for the season they voted down, and we're still getting 60 games.
Exactly.
So there's no difference there. And when it breaks down to, Trevor Barra said it correctly, so he's like, so we turned down playoff money, DH, and other stuff just so we can possibly file a grievance if we wanted to. Which, of course, a grievance, if it could happen, could take years.
Yeah.
Look at Chris Bryant, for example. He filed his grievance that year after they waited for him, and it took till this past year for him to like, sorry, you have one more year. So it's something that like it's a lot of players are mind blown that it was that far, 33-5. Like if it was close, I'm like, okay, like some people were, but a lot of players apparently that have reached out to certain reporters and stuff are with Trevor Bauer. Like, why did we do all this just to possibly gain money in the future? So ultimately, 60 games. We have a sprint.
Yeah, and so that brings us to our next topic.
So, 60 games. Opening day, July 24th.
Yep. What can we expect in 60 games? Like I told Alan earlier, we're used to seeing 100 more games in a season. Like you said, it's usually a marathon where the best teams are going to outperform the worst teams over the time of the season. But now we have 60 games. Think about that. If you get off to a slow start, you are done. First team to win 20 games, that's a third of the season. Come on. So what can we expect, Alan?
So this is the thing. Like of course, there's no expanded playoffs, so we're still getting 10 teams. The one biggest thing that we're still waiting to hear is what's the roster going to be? What expansion? Because there's going to be expanded rosters. Because some people they're still considering not having traditional divisions.
Okay.
They're thinking about doing 10 divisions, teams per division, a East, Middle, and a West Coast.
Okay.
So that's still a possibility. They'll work that out in the next week before they have to report. So that's a big step. But we're talking about, opening day, July 24th. July 1st is most likely all players have to report for a 2.0 spring training. Mm-hmm. And most likely will be at home, except for, like we said, Toronto's probably going to be at their AAA facility. It came out right before we started recording this. There will be a trade deadline as August 31st. So ultimately, you get a month of players before you want to trade, figure it out, which is interesting because what's the trade value going to be?
In a month, right. But from what I'm seeing, though, what I'm understanding, 60 games, think about it. These guys have been streaming their Twitch accounts and they've been playing video games all summer long until now. Now you want them to come back and play baseball, a physical sport that takes a lot out of you. You're prepared for this in spring, but not now because we don't know if there was going to be a season or not. So I have a feeling there are going to be some guys who are not going to come back and play. They're going to sit this one out. And then the guys that do come back and play, unfortunately, we're going to see some injuries. We're going to see more injuries. Some guy's going to have a hammy, pull his back or something, and he's not going to play the rest of the season. We might see some guys for a couple weeks get injured, and then are out the rest of the season because of this. Because you don't know how they're going to react. Their body's going to react.
The biggest thing I think is going to be pitchers. So you go through spring 2.0 and something don't feel right, especially for like your free agent, like Trevor Bauer, like God, what is the pitcher who's our boy that we just traded for? Marcus Stroman. So if they don't have their, they don't want to risk it because they're about to make money.
Okay, exactly. And they're not the only ones in that position. There's a lot of people in this position where they might start making money. But this could be a good thing because maybe some players sit out. Maybe some guys get injured. It happens. But then we're going to actually find some guys in the minor league system that get called up to the big leagues that might not have gotten a chance otherwise. Like I said, we talked about Christian Walker, who was really good at not getting a chance. Well, if a guy's like that in the system now and they need a player, they're going to call that guy up. And this might be their opportunity to shine. Also, like I said, man, this is a sprint. Any team, earlier in the season, back in January, if you were listening to us, we had a lot of predictions of what was going to happen this season. But now that we're actually here and we're seeing there's going to be 60 games, I cannot predict who's going to win the World Series because any team that gets off to a hot start has a chance. I told Alan before we started recording today, I really like the White Sox right now. And he said the Reds have a chance as well. It's just don't think about the traditional teams because you don't know. Like the Yankees could start off 0-8, and the next thing you know, that's a lot to catch up.
The biggest thing is going to be your pitching depth because most likely we're talking, 3 weeks to get your spring training up. So no arms are going to be ready unless you've been consistently working out with your arms. So most likely that's why rosters can expand. So starters are not going to go as long. So your bullpen's got to be deep. And do you have those young starters that could be long relievers at first that could come up that first week or so? Like, we don't know. And you're still thinking about starting pitchers are going to get anywhere from 10 to 12 games, depending on how many rotations you go. If you go 6-man, you're looking at 10. If you're going 5-man, you're looking at roughly 12.
And that's assuming that all the pitchers are going to report to your team that want to play this year. Because you might have to have fill-in guys. You might have 2 guys from the minors who have to play this year because 2 guys that are normally starting are like, I'm taking this year off. I'm not risking it.
And that's the thing we're still waiting on. Is there a taxi squad? Like, how many players are going to carry? Like, MLB said they will allow people to sign minor league contracts. They won't apparently ding to the 40-man roster. So there's a possibility that 40 men might be able to be in the team.
All right.
And then there's going to be a 60-man maybe minor leagues that you can still have working out maybe.
Okay.
We'll get details. They said something about 40-man roster and a 60-man something. I was like, what is this? Like, we haven't heard anything yet about these.
So with that being said, are we going to see minor league ball this year?
And the thing is, like, do they do in spring training? But then, you know, Arizona and Florida are having an uptick of coronavirus cases. So it's
And minor leagues are normally over by September, so that's not a lot of wiggle room right there. So where are these guys going to be practicing that you're going to have on a backup squad? Because they got to get reps. You have to get reps. Are they going
to be at the stadium? Are they traveling with the teams?
If they are.
Or they're just going to be staying at, like, for example, Mets players are going to stay just in New York until they need it somewhere else.
Right, exactly. So we don't know because of the coronavirus. But if these guys are there, how are they getting their reps? You're going to get guys in there that are going to be cold. They're not going to be seeing live pitching every day like when you get called up. So there's a lot of things that they need to figure out before this season goes on. And also, in spring training 2.0, what happens if people start getting coronavirus?
Exactly.
What happens? Are they going to shut it down, or are we just going to keep going? Because they've already committed.
That is a big question. A lot of people are wondering, like, if there's an outbreak, like, okay, these 4 players are sick. Now you got to hopefully have players that can sub them, especially if it's your star players. Like, think about it. If you get coronavirus and you're a star pitcher, you're missing 2 starts.
And if you're a star pitcher and you get coronavirus, that completely changes your team's outlook. Think about it. If you lost a Justin Verlander, a Jacob deGrom, now your team, who knows what your team's going to do? So if they sit this one out, that is huge for the team. Like I said, don't be surprised if we see the White Sox in there or even the Tigers.
Yeah, like pretty much what we're going to have to do if we're going to try to pick teams, like try to pick when we get more details of what the divisions are. Because the schedule, most likely, if they do the 3, they said they're going to play in the division only. So it makes less travel.
Well, I don't care what the schedule is. I still can't pick a team with 60 games because anything is possible.
Well, I'm going to say we can kind of look at it and see who reports, who doesn't report.
That's true. Yes.
We can kind of go off of that.
We can absolutely do that, yes.
But yeah, it's going to be very weird once we finally get the full details, most likely in a week when they all report, like, okay, here's the schedule. And then next, like, okay, who didn't report? Then we can start figuring out, like, who's going to be there, what's the team's going to look like, and then we can start figuring out. And then everyone's questioning, like, is this, a lot of people are like, it's going to be a World Series title no matter what. Some players are going to feel that way because they've got their title, but then some people are going to look at it, fans, like, it's an asterisk. Like,
Exactly. So, like I said, if we're sitting here and the end of the season, you see the Blue Jays win the World Series or some team that you're not exactly thinking about. Like if the Oakland A's or somebody win it, we're not even picturing, like the Dodgers aren't even in it, the Yankees aren't in it, something like that. Then a lot of people are going to say, well, it wasn't a real season. These guys got lucky or whatever the case may be. If the Orioles take home the trophy, come on, guys, you're going to be saying it. All I'm saying is if you're out here and you're going to watch this season, I would be looking at the odds in Vegas and putting some money on some random teams because guess what? It could really happen this season.
It could. It really could. And another thing I actually heard was there is a possibility the universal DH will happen this year.
Okay.
Because apparently in the safety protocol, it is in there for DH, so there won't be the pitcher being interacted with.
I think this is the perfect time to do it.
So that's one I think it must have. And if somehow they can have negotiations and get the microphones, that'd be awesome too.
I think baseball needs microphones.
I think that could save the season to have some interaction to bring the young crowd in, because especially coronavirus, they're not going nowhere for traveling or stuff, so they're at home. They can watch baseball, like listen to their players talk and stuff. I think would gradually improve the game.
Baseball needs to take a picture out of the book from the NBA and what they did in spring training 1.0. Get some guys with mics because it's fun for the crowd to hear them talk during the game. I like it. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Especially because they're going to be in the stands. So there's going to be some fun, like they can talk and have some interaction because they're not going to be interacting with fans. Like they're going to be kind of bored out there. So if someone can talk to the booth and stuff like that, I think it'd be great for baseball. So not really a big episode this week, but it was something where we can talk. We finally, round 5 was the KO. The decision.
It was a UFC championship match.
It went to decision.
Exactly.
Rob Manfred and the owner said, boom, 60 games.
Kind of like a split decision, if you ask me. Nobody really won. But the fans kind of won just because we're going to get to see actual baseball this year. So I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited too.
I can't wait to see what they do. I'm assuming that the home run champ or the home run leader this year is going to be around 28.
Yeah. So they pulled the fact for 60 games. The first 60 games, Barry Bonds, the year that he set the record.
Oh, we're talking about records.
Is 32 home runs in 60 games.
Okay, yeah. So like I said, we'll be 25.
And I was like, okay, if Pete hit 53 through 162, yeah, there's no way. I'm expecting to highlight 25.
Yeah, 25, 28. Tell us in the chat how many home runs you think is going to be who's going to hit the most home runs and how many home runs are they going to hit?
Yeah, so definitely when we get more different, we can start repicking our Cy Young winners and MVP possibly.
Like I said, we need to wait until we get somebody reporting to camp, so I know who's not going to be there, and then by spring training end, we'll know who's still going to be healthy.
Yeah, so it's definitely a weird season. We'll keep everyone update. But hopefully next time we talked about who reported, who didn't, what's the season going to look like for sure. And so we'll catch y'all next time. All right, peace. All right, everyone. Thank you for checking out this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. Don't hog the goodness here from AA Sports with your friends. And if you want to take that step further, please click on that Patreon link that's in that YouTube description down there. We do monthly giveaways, gifts from us if you do different tiers, and you will get most likely everything we do here at AA Sports a day early, if not more. So please share that with your friends also. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record.